Hey there, Bio. Mrs. Cozen here. I have a photosynthesis joke for you. What do you call the tree who decided to become a DJ? So think about that joke. What process do trees go through? They go through photosynthesis. He became the photosynthesizer. Haha. You're welcome for that one. All right. Last video notes about photosynthesis, guys. This is going to be video 1C, photosynthesis reactions. Okay. Most of this stuff is going to be in if you need to use your book at all for this, is going to be in chapter 8, section 3. Here's all the key vocab we're going to talk about. Okay. So now we're going to take all that information about what we know about the formula for photosynthesis. We're going to talk about where it actually gets used in the chloroplast. So let's start by talking about the structure of a chloroplast. Okay. Here's my picture of a chloroplast right here. Okay. You guys have an outer membrane and an inner membrane. Okay. I know it sounds kind of silly. Membrane, there's one membrane on the outside, one on the inside. Okay. There's some very specific chemical reactions that happen inside those that you don't have to know for my class. But when you get to a more advanced biology class, say in college, you'll have to learn that. So make sure you guys know there's two membranes. Okay. Then we have these little things called thylakoids. They are green. What makes things green in plant cells? Chlorophyll. Okay. I think of them like little green pancakes. Okay. They're these little tiny membranes that contain chlorophyll and other pigments. Okay. Thylakoids are your individual little green pancakes, or it almost looks like stacks of little green coins. Okay. Very important, that green is going to help us absorb energy from the sun. And just because they like to make it hard on you, we can't just call it a stack of thylakoids. We have to call it a granum. Or you may have seen it in your book called a grana. Grana is like the plural of a granum. Okay. So back to your picture here, you guys have individual thylakoids, and when you have a whole stack of them, that's called a granum. Okay. So here's one granum, here's another granum, and two of them, you would have two grana. Okay. This is the stuff that has the green in it that's going to absorb energy for photosynthesis. And then the last place in between is called the stroma. It is not empty. Do not think of it as empty, okay? Think of it kind of like cytoplasm in a cell. It has all kinds of stuff happening in it. It's mostly made of water, but it also has different enzymes that we're going to use in part of photosynthesis called the Calvin cycle, okay? So make sure that you guys have some kind of picture like this drawn in your notes. If you've done the structure of a chloroplast assignment already, you already have that. All right, friends. So right here, you guys, you can see the stroma. It looks empty in this picture, not really an empty space. Lots of stuff actually going on in there, okay? So now that you guys know your structure of your chloroplast, we can talk about what's happening in there. You have two reactions that happen. You have one that's called the light dependent, and then one that's called the light independent, or the Calvin cycle, okay? Light dependent, it needs light. Big shocker, I know. So this is where the light from the sun is going to be absorbed in photosynthesis. It's going to happen in the thylakoids. It uses these things, okay? So think about in a chemical reaction, what are the things that go in? They're called reactants, okay? So these are the reactants for light-dependent reaction, okay? Water, we know from our formula for photosynthesis, we use water. We take in our battery that needs to be recharged, ADP, okay? And these are also electron carriers. Think of them kind of like batteries that need to be recharged as well. And then we go through the process of the light-dependent reaction, and one of our byproducts is oxygen. We know plants put off oxygen. It's actually a waste product for them. We use energy from the sun to take ADP, attach a phosphate, make it into ATP, okay? And then we attach this hydrogen to this one over here to make this one called NADPH. So here you guys think of them like batteries that need to be recharged. We use sunlight to put out batteries that are all charged up, okay? So in the light-dependent reaction, let me talk you guys through that in a little bit more detail. We start with a process called photosystem 2. Don't ask me why we start with number 2. We always do, okay? The first thing that happens is we have to absorb energy from sunlight, okay? That sunlight helps us to raise electrons to higher energy levels. That means, if you guys remember, electrons are orbiting around our nucleus. It helps us to raise those electrons to higher energy levels so that they can be valence electrons, so they can leave the atom and then be used to carry energy somewhere else, okay? And we get oxygen and hydrogen left over. Remember here, we had oxygen left over, we had hydrogen left over, and we attached it here, okay? So that's our first step. The second step in the light-dependent reaction is called photosystem 1, okay? We're going to do something similar to photosystem 2. We're going to absorb more sunlight, Okay, we're going to raise electrons to a higher energy level. And this last thing called ATP synthase, think when you synthesize something, you create something, we're going to make ATP. Okay, so basically, you guys, what we're going to do, we're going to take a phosphate, we're going to use energy from the sun to attach it to ADP, and we get ATP. Okay, all right. Next step, you guys, is called the light independent or Calvin cycle. So we came with all of these things right here. Okay, ATP. Remember, we made that in the light dependent. Now we're going to use it here. We add this recharged battery, NADPH. We also take in CO2, and we're going to also take in some carbon. And we're going to use the energy from these to make this big thing, sugar, right here. Okay, we're going to use it to make that big sugar right there. Okay. So here's how the steps go in the light independent reaction. You start with carbon dioxide. Yay, because plants take in CO2. Okay. They take in CO2, they put out oxygen. Okay, so we take 6 of those CO2 molecules, and then what we're going to get is we're going to add 6 more carbon molecules, and we're going to get 12 molecules of carbon altogether. Fantastic. We're going to take our charged up batteries that we made in the light dependent reaction, and we're going to use the charged up batteries, our 12 carbon molecules, okay, and we're going to use those to make sugar, and then we have our battery right here that gets uncharged, loses a phosphate, turns into this right here. Okay. Excuse me for coughing, guys. Then we're going to take those 12 carbons, we're going to make sugar out of them. I know these steps are in a lot of detail. What you guys really need to know is that we're making sugar here. We're making glucose, okay? So we're taking our carbon molecules, we're taking our CO2, we're putting those two together, okay? And we are eventually putting out, okay, this right here. Draw this picture, okay? So you guys, here's light dependent reaction. Here's Calvin cycle. You can see right here, water's coming in, oxygen's going out, CO2's coming in, sugar's going out. If you guys go back to your formula for photosynthesis, you can see these are our reactants and these are our products. Yay, we need those. Light dependent reaction, we bring in light, we charge up these batteries right here. Then over here, doesn't use light, you can see that. We go through this cycle, we use up the energy in those batteries, we send them back to get recharged again. Okay. And you guys, that is the end of reactions for photosynthesis. We're going to talk about these a lot more in class, in a lot more detail, but this is really the big idea that you guys need to come out of this video with, okay? This right here, that you need to know what goes in and what comes out of light-dependent reactions, recharging those batteries, and you guys need to know what goes in and what comes out of the Calvin cycle, okay? And then when we get to respiration, you guys will see these are very important for us, okay? We need oxygen, we need sugar, so we're going to use those, okay? That's the end of your video 1C. Thank you so much, my friends. You guys are all done.